Welcome to selfdiscoveryradio.com, where the orchard of wisdom is just ready for picking. We celebrate your why, the journey that you've taken that inspires someone else. We support your services, we support your story. Come and be our guest, become a host, be an author with us. Come and see what we've got. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Their Story Matters, and Happy New Year. Welcome to another wonderful new year and more shows coming to you from selfdiscoveryradiotv.com and from me, your host, Sara Troy. I have a wonderful guest with me to start the year off today, somebody who's very, very brave, very creative, and has put those two things together. She suffers from blindness, but that doesn't hold her back. The actual, what it is she's got, I'm going to let you say because it's really complicated words, and I don't want to do that injustice. But it's Amy Bovaird that I have here today, thriving with vision and hearing loss. I mean, to lose both or to be losing both is very difficult. So I'm really very proud of her here today, doing both the audio and the video with us. And sometimes you may have to ask me to repeat something, which is perfectly okay. She was diagnosed at the age of 28 with, I'm going to try it, Retinitis Pigmentosa. I don't know if I'm saying that right or not, which declared her legally blind. It's hereditary. It's a degenerative eye disease that results in blindness or near blindness. There's no cure to date. Amy has peripheral vision. She jokes that she's at the end of the tunnel vision in her eyesight. She suffers from dual disability, progressive vision, and hearing loss, which is also due to Usher syndrome, the leading cause of death and blindness in the world. That doesn't stop her, though, because she's an author, and she's written quite a number of books, which we're going to be talking about today. And she has a new book coming out, The Tree Man, which is around her father, and another book, a traveling book called Falling for Ecuador, one foot in the Ecuador and the other foot in the vine. And all of these can be found on WhisperSync, ready for people who are visually impaired. So I always celebrate people that are willing to accept their challenges in life, no matter what they are, and to step forth into what they can do instead of feeding what they can't. And so this is absolutely wonderful to see someone so spirited in embracing everything she can do, not being caught up in the quote disability. So welcome to the show, Amy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I'm really excited to start the year off this way.
Yes, it's a wonderful way to start off the year. And, you know, as I said, it's funny because things comes in kind of sequences for me. And I've just interviewed somebody who is blind, and it's Beyond Eyesight is the name of her show. And it's, you know, but she's at that stage where, having been blind in one eye all her life, now going blind in the other, in that transition of all her creative talents, because she's an artist, of what does it mean for her now. You have had this since you were young, so this is something you've grown up with. So you're accustomed to it, or was there a transition into it for you?
There was a transition. It's a very gradual thing for me. For everyone, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
The disease is called retinitis pigmentosa. So the pigment, there is a pigment that covers your eye. And for some people, it's rapid. For some people, it's gradual.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on a lot of different qualities of the person, characteristics. So for me, I made a decision to continue with my life as a teacher overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was diagnosed with it, after I was diagnosed with it, I thought, oh yeah, I don't really have the bad kind of this, because I kept adapting.
Mm-hmm.
In 2006, I came back to the United States and tried to write for those 2 years. Then I thought, well, gosh, this is a little bit harder than I thought. So I went back to teaching, and it was like I stepped off a cliff. I kept tripping over steps, running into walls. I thought my students might think I was the town drunk. So it was a really difficult transition for me. It was so sudden, and it just made it like, oh, I am really losing my sight. This is not a This is not a condition that I can really say, oh, I'm just going to go on with. So I had to make a decision to get some help.
Yes. That's the big thing though, isn't it? There's the independence and there's the, the ability to ride through something or rise above it. But there's at some point you've got to go, this is, I'm out of my depth here. This is too much of a change and I need guidance and help, as to what the next, because it's not the end of your story. It just means your story is changing. It's guidelines, isn't it? Total new chapters coming up for you.
Yes. Sorry?
Total new chapters coming up for you. Your story has been one way. Now you have to completely rewrite it another.
That is so true. So true. And I think it takes a lot of courage to take that next step. As you're saying, tap with a cane, tapping it. It's just really a big transition. But once you start taking those steps to go and move to the next step, I guess you could say, then it is so amazing how little by little you can accomplish your goals.
Right. Yes. It's not feeding the challenge that you've been given. It's observing it as a part of you, but it's also realizing you have other senses that you can ignite, right? And other things that you can do, different ways of doing something that you're already doing, but it's just a relearning curve, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. My mobility instructor told me that when we did our first walk, quote unquote blind walk, I wore sleep shades over my eyes, and I walked down the street from my house and crossed a bridge into the next city over and came back. And when we came back, I said, wow, we are right at my house again. And I had asked my mobility instructor some things, like, how do I cross the street? He said, you have to come back. I was so amazed. He was completely blind, my mobility instructor.
Right.
Completely. Yes. And so I said, how I was in your world and you were in mine.
Yeah.
And he said, Amy, there is only one world that you can, at times you can see it when with your eyes, and at other times you have to see it in another way. But it's only one world, and we see it in two different ways. We perceive it different ways.
It's the inside out, isn't it? We rely so much on our eyes as to understanding what we see. When you're not using your eyes, you have a different comprehension of what your inner eye is seeing, because you feel what you see, right? Or what you're not seeing. Yes, all those other senses click in. So everything becomes sensory by sound, by touch, by feeling, and that gives you a different form of sight.
Absolutely, yes. And smell
yes,
too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what sense came onto you stronger first?
What came stronger?
The sensory, to replace the eyesight. What sense kind of really peaked up for you?
It was smell and hearing. And even though hearing is a weaker area for me, but like he would take me to a train track and he would tell me, what do you hear? And he would say that these are clues that that let you know where you are in your environment. It was so, actually, it started to be exciting.
Yes, because one moment you're feeling debilitated, I can't see anymore, right? And the next moment he's giving you your power back by showing you how to see in a different way. And so it's a whole new exploration, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And he always seemed to tune in, like he knew where other people were there. And he taught me little things just by example, like putting out my hand first, shaking it. That would give me confidence.
Yeah.
And that I can, so people have to see my hand. I don't have to look for their hand.
Right.
Just wonderful little tiny tidbits. And he also didn't mince words. Like, for example, when we were doing our first mobility training outside in the city next to where I live, there was a block party and a roar to the shore with, I don't know, 8,000 motorcyclers around. And I was using my cane for the first time in that area. And there was a woman said, hey lady, look, that's an $8,000 paint job. And he said, oh, didn't I tell you the Roar to the Shore is on right now? So it wasn't, I was like terrified that I heard something. And he's like saying, it's okay, it's okay. There's something different going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was like so straightforward that
Yeah.
it was humorous. It became humorous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you find people perceive you differently now?
Yes. They make a wide berth around me, and I don't know that they're afraid of me, or they think that I'm going to trip on them, or they do treat me a little bit differently until I put them at ease,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's really me putting them at ease that puts us back on an even keel.
Right. Yeah, don't see my quote disability, see me.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
still the
exactly.
same person. I'm just having to adapt, how I interact in life, but I'm still the same person. It's, as my friend that I just interviewed said, that when people realized she was blind, they started shouting at her because I'm not deaf, I just can't see. So
Yeah, yes,
people are under an enormous amount of perception when somebody has an obstacle like this, aren't they, of how to treat them. And as you say, a lot of people move away because they just don't know. And really what you're saying is, just treat me like you always have, but understand that, I have the vision impairment, so don't put obstacles in my way I'm going to trip over, or warn me if there's something there. That's all, right?
yes. And I think there was a period of about a year or 2 years where I was still getting used to it and was afraid to tell people the
Mm-hmm.
things that I needed. There's one story I wrote about staying overnight at a woman's house. I was afraid to tell her I couldn't see where her furniture was. So I made this big deal about sitting on the floor, how much I love the floor, instead of telling her, wow, I can't see your furniture. Where is that chair? And she, on the other hand, was afraid I was going to fall down the stairs. So every time I went near the basement door, she'd say, close that basement door. It was really a cross section of fear that we didn't communicate,
Mm.
And I find that very interesting later, looking back at it.
Yeah. And of course, you've written a book called that, Cane Confessions, right? Which I think is an excellent read for anybody that's facing, some challenges. But it's also an excellent book for other people to read. If you have somebody that or you're in an environment where that, somebody is blind, if by your confessions, they actually have an education themselves of how to interact with you, or what to do, or when to step up, right? And of course, if somebody says to you, can I help you, or can I guide you across the street, you're not affronted to go, oh, I can do it myself. It's that you recognize it as a kind act. And yes, thank you very much. That's very, very nice, isn't it? But some people are too scared to come up in case they upset you, or, or you perceive it as you're incapable. Kindness and nicety doesn't matter. We'd like it at all times, no matter what, right?
That's true. Yes. There is a campaign now going on by another vision impaired woman that I know, that she's ask first, don't grab,
Mm-hmm.
to help somebody, like
Mm-hmm.
ask if you need help.
Yes.
And she has some stories about that. I have not had any of those experiences. I have always had a lot of more positive experiences.
Excellent.
But yes.
Which is important. So, I can imagine the confessions, would be really interesting because, again, it's a learning curve for you. You're now learning to see in a different way, and your life changes. And of course, it always translates, isn't it? What you're hearing will give you an inner vision. And the fact that you have seen for most of your life, when you hear something, you can recognize it and visualize it in your own head. It's not like you were born blind and have no reference. You have reference to draw from, don't you?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. Yes, I have reference to everything. It's just I don't know where it is, and sometimes I don't know where a person is, and I'm talking to her, and she goes out of my vision. I'm like, where did you go?
Yeah,
she's been right there.
yeah,
so that's kind of funny, kind of strange, funny. Yes.
yeah. But I mean, again, that's something I think you have to have as a little humor along this. Don't take yourself or the situation too seriously?
Oh yes, you absolutely have to have a sense of humor.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And we both know Maxwell Ivory, the blind blogger.
yes.
And I think I was one of his first interviews, and I interviewed him because of an article that he'd written as as a blogger. And of course now he's a podcaster, he's an author, he's a coach, and he went off to New York on his own over Christmas and New Year, as no assistance, nothing, and just so many people willing to step up and help him, photograph it so he has a journal of it, and just assist him, because quintessentially people are kind and they like to step up and help somebody else, don't they?
That's correct. Yeah. Yes. I'm trying to think of some of the things that happened when I was in the department store, like Lowe's, trying to find a trellis, and I wasn't quite even sure what a trellis looked like. So, so I was asking the clerk, and I didn't see. He said, "Follow me." So he's a really tall guy, like 7 foot tall or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was trying really hard to keep up with him, running, and I didn't see a wagon that was that was in my way. So I torpedoed out over the wagon, and I looked up, and he said, "Madame, are you okay?" I said, "Oh yes, I'm quite used to this." And I don't know, I made some joke, and then I went on. We continued on, and he showed me where the trellises were, the area where they were, but not the exact location. And I went in, I finally found them, and I got 2 of them. And I went, and there, a lady offered, as you said, offered to help me. And I said, "Oh no, I'm good. I see the trellises." And I went to take them. They all fell on my head.
Oh no.
There were like 3 or 4 trellises. I was like, here I am underneath the pile of trellises. The woman had gone, so I had to figure out how to extricate myself out of the trellises. It was so funny later, looking back at it, how when we do and don't accept help, and
Yes.
how people perceive
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, this is kind of like a comic skit, of what you're doing there. But I mean, there's only so many times you can fall before those falls begin to hurt.
Oh,
So, are you actually taught, when you're learning a cane, how to use a cane, in actual how to fall? Because it's inevitable you are going to.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that's right. And they even taught me like a football player, like to cover your head,
Right.
so that if you I used to run into my breakfast bar a lot and get all kinds of bumps on my head. So he said, "No, you got to be like a football player, and you got when you bend over, you know." So I started to have to learn these other, if I didn't have a cane with me at that moment, and yeah.
I mean, can imagine, yes, sometimes the cane's a bit of a pain because it takes up a hand. But really, in all honesty, it also gives people the knowledge that, you're sight challenged and to get out of your way.
Yeah. Most of the time people do. There's a few times where they're just like, they're totally oblivious. And the other thing is asking for directions when you're inside a store. I had to learn to be very specific and not say, "Where is such and such a place," but "Can you take me there?" Because they would say it's over there, or it's, and it's in aisle 9 or in something. And I'd be like, "Where exactly is that?"
Yes.
And
is
so,
your 9 in Braille? Is there something you can press and goes, "You're in aisle 9"? Because they don't really cater to that, do they?
Yeah.
Have you found that there's improvements, I know that, I mean, obviously some technology today is absolutely amazing for Braille, or, being able to speak into instruments, and they can type for you, and, and answer phones and all of that type of thing. But are you finding that, like people in a wheelchair for so long didn't have accessibility, are you finding that being blind, that in shops and malls and things like this have become a little more friendly towards it, or is it still the same?
It's changing. Like the supermarket just in my area, they a couple months ago, they have a new app that there is someone who remotely guides you to do
Ah,
your shopping. And the only problem is you have to be like an octopus. You have to have like 8 legs. You know, you have your purse in one, you have your cell phone in the other. It's pointed toward the shelf. You've got your cane in another hand. So you got to you got to be
yes,
good at maneuvering.
right.
And then you have to listen to what they're asking you. So I think I have seen, it looks like people that are completely blind using it much more easily than me. So I don't know if it was just me having all these things in my arms and trying to find things, or if it is they need to work out a few kinks.
Right. Maybe, the push cart, your bag and the cane in the cart, because you've got the cart to hold on to, and then
Yeah,
you can use, the phone and just plonk everything into the cart. So that might be a way of doing it. And then you're not having to hold the cane and worry about your bag. So
yes, yeah,
that's an option.
yeah. Although sometimes, and also the person remotely guiding you guides you around other obstacles, ideally.
Ideally.
So
I
yes.
mean, I know there's some stores where it's actual humans that help you around. So are there still, the stores that you can go to there and say, visually impaired, I need help, and it's for someone to go around with me? Or are they relying on the virtual now?
No, you can ask for help
Right.
and they will help you. You have to be very clear,
Yes.
in that you need help. Sometimes I went to one of the grocery stores and I asked them where the location of a couple things were, and they told me in aisle such and such, and they wrote it down for me, so they didn't actually take me.
Did they
Problem was
write
they
it in
wrote it down, I couldn't read.
Braille? Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't click, does it? You're saying, I can't see. Can you tell me where it is? Oh, here it is on a piece of paper, but I can't see. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
for some people, they just don't click. And it's that's your problem, right? Um, have you found any negativity from people towards you?
No, I've been very fortunate. I haven't really. I have had a situation where a clerk presumed that I could not see to write, and when I went to sign the card, like for a credit,
Hmm.
and that person said, "Oh, no, just put a scribble," and and oh, here, I'll do it. And I think it just made him so nervous that he saw my cane. And I'm like, no, I just need to look at the little gray box and sign my name. He said,
Hmm.
no. So I think that there's a lot of education that needs to
Yes.
be out there to let people know that there are degrees of vision loss. And
Yes.
if you are using a cane, you don't have, it's not like all or nothing. It's not, I'm completely blind or completely sighted. There's this whole interim in between there, and people don't know that. And
Right.
I didn't know that before I started using my cane either.
Right.
So
And of course, the other perception is of course where you're blind and then you can't do anything. And of course, you're an author, you're a speaker, and you get out and about. And it's just, again, it's just changing the way you're doing things, adapting to a new way of doing it, obviously. But I think that goes with anyone in life when they have a physical challenge that they're given, is that you're not the same person you used to be. That doesn't
yeah,
mean you throw yourself out in the bathwater, right? It means you take everything that is the heart and soul of you and you just use it in a different way. And, become a person that just uses a different limb. That's all. But the transition period, I think, going, for people is really hard because we obviously become very reliant on our eyes, as to what we see. And to suddenly not have it there or have it very blurry and to miss out on some things too. And you've got the emotional loss as well as the physical loss and the retraining. And having compassion from other people and understanding helps you get there, doesn't it? Because I imagine there's a lot of maybe anger, upset, fear about how is your life going to be now.
yes, absolutely. It has changed a lot because the perception in society is when you have a cane, you can't really accomplish much.
Hmm.
That's the initial perception. And as we are doing more and more, we vision impaired people are doing more and more things to change this perception, then people are learning and opening up more. It's both ways. Like, for example, they don't know the challenges, so you have to share the challenges. And on the other hand, they don't think that that we are as capable of doing things, and so you have to share those accomplishments.
Right.
So it's in both spectrums, what we can do and what we cannot do. So I think it's really important to have a dialogue with people, and that's what I want my book to do. I started blogging about some of the challenges and the humor that I saw in these challenges and ways that I addressed them, and a lot of sighted people read my blog and said, I never had any idea of
exactly.
That it was. Yes. And so I felt that I began to feel that it was a really strong bridge, and it made me approachable. So therefore the lessons or the things that I wanted to teach were much easier to convey.
Now, you've also written a book, Mobility Matters and Seeking Solace. In which order did they come in?
Mobility Matters, Stepping Out in Faith was the first one. And it was about a year of my life when I had 2 teaching jobs, one at a university, one at a high school, teaching Spanish. That, and it was really me coming to terms with my vision loss and the fact that I had to use a cane, because for 20 years I had kept my vision loss a secret, because I was a traveler and I was a teacher overseas, and I didn't want people to know that I couldn't do this, and maybe it would even make me ineligible for a job. So I just kept silent, and all of a sudden now I have this cane and people are starting to see. So I went at the start of that year, I pretended that I didn't show my cane to anybody. And it's really, that book is the journey of how God put people in my life, certain people, and my principle especially, to help me accept myself as I was, and to also to realize that my life was not over, that my life could continue on in a different way.
Redirect.
So yes, and it was really 2 things. I say it is my faith walk and my physical walk they meet together. They convert.
Yeah.
So it was amazing by the end of that year how much my attitude had changed toward this, toward my abilities. I became so open about it, where I even spoke to my students in the chapel about what it's like to have vision loss and to be persistent and keep moving forward. So it was really an amazing year.
Don't you find when you're writing something like this, you're writing to share your story, but to educate other people, but how much in other people reading it back, the perception teaches you then about things you haven't seen, even though you wrote the book?
That's right. There are so many. Yes, absolutely. And it opens the book for dialogue for other vision impaired people who are struggling with using a cane. Because the big problem is there's a stigma in society when you use that, and it's like you're screaming, I am blind, I am blind. And so the fear is others will perceive that you can do much less. And now all of a sudden you're just completely vulnerable. That's the feeling that it has. And so a lot of people don't want to admit that they need to have a cane. And so like me, they just want to be clumsy. I mean, they are just perceived as being clumsy.
Right.
And sometimes that's okay. People accept it. I accepted it for a long time. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just, jingling. But when I really started to use my cane, I was making a statement, and overcoming that fear is the big hurdle for many people.
Yes. And it's funny because what I find is for a lot of people that I've interviewed that have develop that challenge, whether it be physical, mental, or whatever, you know, that new adaptation to who you are now. One of the biggest fears always was how others perceive them, not about how they perceive themselves. It was always the reflection of others, which really has got nothing to do with anyone else.
Right.
It's how you see yourself and how you decide, you know, okay, that doesn't go to, it's not going to stop me doing A, B, and C. It just means I have to adjust the way I do it or how I do it. And it's that journey for yourself, because this is your own personal journey, isn't it? Into exploring your courage, your strength, and your new abilities, because one ability has stepped down. And if we didn't let so many other people's perception dictate to us, we would get on in that transformation of who we are now a lot quicker.
Absolutely. You know, that there is a quote I remember. It says, "What others think of me is none of my business."
Yes, yes, and it's very true. Yes.
Yes. And
Yeah. How long did it take you to actually register that?
probably a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then, of course, when you did, you know, it became something that you realize, I don't need to do this for anyone else. I'm doing this for me.
That's right. Absolutely. Yes. And I learned that using this cane gave me independence. It didn't take it away. That was a huge,
Yes.
huge lesson.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it probably seems very clear to other people, but when you're the one that has to take the cane and put it in front of you, it is such a huge, like, about face, you know.
Yeah. Is that a pussycat I hear in the background?
Yes.
Yeah. A
Yeah.
great companion. Yes. And it's funny how animals don't care whatever your challenge is. They just see you. They just love you. But it's also, they seem to know when you're down or needing that extra, isn't it? And they just come up
Yes.
there with that extra hug, that extra kiss, that extra love. And it's such a wonderful thing to have because of the nurturing side of it. Because yes, you know, your bravado, your strength, and your courage in this transition is wonderful, but there are the days where you just want to curl up in a ball and cry. And
Yes.
having that love, whether it be from an animal or from someone else, you just need that to kind of fortify you and help you get back up. And that's perfectly healthy and perfectly all right. It's not for you to think, oh, I failed. No, you're just giving yourself some nurturing.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And this cat also, for a while, it seemed like she was losing her vision. And so I took like courage from my cat. It's kind of strange.
Yes. Yes, because they adapt. They use different senses again, right? Um, you know, it's like people losing a limb, and they've, you know, the right limb, and they were right-handed, they've got to learn with the left. Yes, it's going to be scroll at first until you get to something that is legible. And I think that's a lesson for everyone in life, whether you're given, you know, a challenge of disability. We're all disabled if we're not on our right path of who we are, you know, of who we're meant to be, what our instrument is, what our contribution is. And very often, this kind of redirect, as I call it in life, will lead you to discoveries, the self-discovery of who you really are. And everybody that's taken that journey and got to that side of going, I'm very grateful for the journey. I'm very grateful for the redirect, because who I am today and what I stand for and what I'm doing is truly me.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah.
That been your journey?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So are you still teaching, or are you just writing now? What are you doing now?
No, I stopped teaching a couple of years ago, into 2012 actually, and I'm writing full time.
Mm-hmm.
I am speaking, so I'm writing, speaking, educating right now.
Right. What is the book Seeking Solace about? Is it Seeking Solace? Yep.
Yes. Now that book, woo, I stopped writing for a while. I was writing the third mobility book in the series, and my mother, I was speaking. I was speaking at giving my first talk on memoir writing, and I was out of town, and my mother actually suffered a stroke. I was a massive stroke. And I just completely, I really went through a difficult time because I felt like I should have been there for her. And I couldn't write anymore. I was just like, writing is the thing that took me away from my mom. So for 3 months, I didn't do anything. And then I felt like I need to guide my writing somehow.
Yes.
And I have a writing coach, and she says, okay, think about the times that how have you been resilient in the past? So I started to think about it. When I lived in the United Arab Emirates, I had suffered some losses. I lost a set of twins, and I lost, eventually I had another miscarriage, and then I went through a divorce, and then my father was diagnosed with cancer. And all of these things happened when I lived in the Emirates, in the United Arab Emirates, half a world away. So I thought, how did God help me in these times? And going back and writing devotionals and journaling, I came to see how God helped me in all of these situations. By the end of the book, I felt like God was using that to help me get over my mother, the loss of my mother.
Yeah.
And so
I think, the loss of your mother was also the trigger of all the other losses and being so far away, because, we suppress things, in order to get on with life, we suppress it. And at some point it has to be recognized. It has to be honored, and then it has to be released. Doesn't mean you forget, you don't love, but you release the pain. And it takes another loss for you suddenly to realize all the other losses that at the time you just bucked up and got on with it, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so healing. So Seeking Solace is your healing book.
Yes, it's very personal. It's very, it's candid, and it takes all of my losses, it puts it out there, so that, because I know that other people are suffering from, and it just says God was there for me, and He will be there for you too. And that's the statement of it.
Right. And that's, it's, whatever God people want to see is us. I have a wonderful host, a reverend, but his show is The World According to Gus, God, Universe, and Spirit. So it's whatever we want to address it as, but it's to understand we're not alone. There is a force out there.
Yes.
That when we partner with it, when we allow it to guide us, it will always lead us where we need to be, even into pain or even into struggle. That's not to punish you. You haven't sinned. It's part of your journey to go through, to discover your strength, to discover your courage, but also to discover your meaningful purpose. And that's why that struggle is there. And knowing that kind of God is with you is your strength to never give up and always get up and go through the process, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
So you've written a book about your father, the Tree Man.
Yes. Well, I'm writing it now. It's not complete. I'm writing it now. But it's about his stories. My dad was a storyteller. He had a great sense of humor, and he had old vehicles that he made. He stretched out into limousines. He had all kinds of entrepreneurial skills, and so I want to write those stories and share them with everybody in my community, in the world at large, just to say that he lived a life of dreaming, making his dreams come true. So my father was well respected in our area, and he was just so easygoing. He was a fireman. He was a policeman. He was a tree man. He was like a tree. He cut down trees.
Yes.
He had a nursery. He had this the business where we had a Model T, a 1925 Model T, and he stretched it out into a limo, and then he rented it out for proms.
Right.
And my older brother and my brother-in-law were the drivers. It was just like such a fun person.
Right.
And
very innovative.
That's right. Yes. So people are always asking me, when's your dad's book coming out? When's your dad's book coming out? Then my younger brother kind of took over in his footsteps, and he works with wood, except he makes furniture.
Right.
So they're kind of, it's going to be like a book of dad's stories, and then it's going to be passing the legacy onto his children.
Right.
You know?
But so many people reading that book are going to see a resemblance to their own family. And, it's a way of honoring your family, but it's also a reflection on other people's family, which makes them look at their parents, the family that's gone before them in different eyes, which we need to do sometimes, because we have to remember the advancements that we have today in the world have come from those that have journeyed before us through their creative innovation. So by sharing your memoir, it's going to trigger other people to look at their own families and, be more in gratitude of those that set the path before us.
I believe so. Yes. Yeah.
Now you've got a travel book also that's going to be coming up called Falling for Ecuador, one foot on the equator and the other on the vine. Tell us about that one.
This is actually, I took this trip to Ecuador before I knew anything about it's called RP, the short-term retinitis pigmentosa. It was before I knew anything about that. All I knew is that I couldn't see in the dark. That's the beginning sign of night blindness. And so I went to Quito on my own, and I organized a trip to the jungle, interior jungle. And I met some people from different places of France and California. And anyway, I led this group. And so it's really about a lot of it's about the jungle itself and their quote unquote adventures in the jungle. And that's where the vine, I was climbing a vine and I couldn't see the next place, and I started to slide down. So that was quite the
terrifying.
So, but there were different because those people were in the jungle. But then I met because I was traveling alone, so I often struck up conversations with people. So I was in Quito, and I met other people, and I had different adventures. And so it's the whole thing is about my adventures in Ecuador as dealing on the side with this night blindness or darkness, or so it's about the message is you can travel, you can pursue your dreams, and just live your life and have fun.
It's knowing your limitations, being respectful of that, it's, knowing what you can and you can't do. Don't go and do what you know you can't do, because yes, you're going to fall down the vine, the crater or whatever. It's doing it within your parameters, but it's still saying, okay, I can't use that particular limb, but let's see how this extends out, and exploring those other options, because so many people get labeled with something, and then it's all of a sudden you can't do. Well, no, there's things that you can't do, but now it's the exploration of what you can do, because now you discover there's other things you can do that you've never utilized because you didn't need to, right? So it's discovering your abilities, because you were so reliant on what you had before. You didn't look at those. Now you can't be reliant on that. Now you seek those abilities that you never thought were there.
Yeah. So it's a pretty humorous book, and all of my books have a lot of humor in them, just because that's how I view life.
Right.
And I got that
Trestles
from my dad.
falling over you, tripping over trucks, falling down vines. Sounds like a Monty Python skit.
Yeah.
You must be very nimble, though. Unfortunately, when I fall, I'm one of these people is completely flattened, but the fact that you can bounce back up again is a blessing for you as well. Yes,
it is. Yes. I'm quite resilient. Sometimes there's the bird that gets flattened and then kind of takes a minute, he finally gets back up.
Yeah.
That's me. Yeah. It might take me a minute to get to stretch myself up again.
Yes.
But I do it. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's good for you. It's the never give up, never give in. It's just about adjustment. It's just about redirection. It's just knowing again yourself, how to honor yourself. You're
Yeah.
not doing this for anyone else. You're doing this for you. And in inspiring yourself by what you're doing becomes an inspiration for someone else.
Yes. And you know, my family helps me a lot because they just let me do, they assume that I can do it.
Right.
So there's no feeling sorry for myself, and there's like no like
No coddling.
yes, that's right. They were, you know, quite strong.
Right. And they'll know that you'll ask if you really need help.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to realize that sometimes you have to ask for things?
Oh, it's a process. I'm still learning. My pride is like, that's the one of the most difficult things is pride.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still a learning process, and I'm still uncomfortable having to ask people, but I'm learning to be more open about what I need and what I don't need. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an obstacle for me because I've always been the one being there for other people, help them pick back up. That's kind of what I do. And it's when I got flattened and had to crawl back up. I didn't want people to know I was flattened and depleted. You know, I developed a disease of my own that kind of pulled the rug from underneath me, and it took me a long time because they didn't even know what it was to kind of recognize the do's and the don'ts that I can do. And of course you got other people, oh yes, I suffer from something that has many points to it. So somebody will say, oh yeah, I have that point and I just do this and I just do that. And it's like we have to go, that's wonderful for you, but you have to do what honors your body, and understand that if you push it too far, you're going to be the one to pay the price, no one else. So it's
Right.
knowing that partnership with what your challenge is, and also that doesn't define me. It's something I carry around, and that's always going to be a part of me, but I am still me, doing what I love and being who I love being. But this is just my challenge, and the parameters, and we're in a good partnership, because if you're not, it will always flatten you, won't it?
That's right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think the challenge with hearing loss for me right now, hearing loss is more disconcerting than my vision loss, because with vision loss you can kind of pretend like if somebody says, oh, do you see that over there? Yesterday my brother was asking me if I saw a plane or something, and I said, oh yeah, where was it? But you cannot pretend with your hearing loss. You
Right.
either hear or you don't. You either say, you can't answer a yes or no question, a question if it's not yes or no. And so there's a lot more limitations, and it's a lot more frustrating.
Yes.
So
And
I'm often,
you find crowds kind of the worst place. Yeah, I'm fine one-on-one, but when I'm in a crowd and there's all that other noise, if I can't see your lips, I can't hear you.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I didn't know that I was doing that
Right.
until, yes. And yes, absolutely. And the sometimes my hearing aids make like everything's super, super loud.
Yes.
And then I have to like take them off. I'm like, kids. My brother will say, she has hearing aids to explain to other people
Right.
why. I'm like, oh, I cover my ears, and other times I just can't hear.
Right.
So, it's going back and forth, and it's really a struggle sometimes for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's in transition of changing. So, of course, it's going to be changing how you do it. I'm meant to wear hearing aids, and I don't, because I know that if I do, I'll be reliant on them completely. And really where I need them is not the one-on-one or in small groups. It's when you're out there where all that noise is on one platform, and it's very hard to bring out the individual thing. And so basically I try not to put myself in those arenas.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's, and sorry, that's too noisy for me. Or when you're going, if you're a guest or going somewhere where it's like that, concentrate on looking at the person close to you so you can read those lips. Otherwise, let everybody else talk. Yeah. Adjustment. But whether you're handicapped or not with anything, we never go through life without having to adjust to a situation, whether it's a physical one, emotional one, or whether it's an environmental one. And if you're not willing to adjust and you always want to go back, have you ever read the book Who Moved My Cheese?
Yes, yes, I have.
Right. I mean, I love it's four, two people, two mice. They all live around this cheese, and one day the cheese is gone, and then it's the reaction to the cheese. You know, give it back. I'm going to sue somebody. I'm not leaving until you give it back to me. Another one rather panicking. I have no idea what to do now. And Sniffy and Scurry, sniffing it out, scurrying it out. Oh, that cheese is gone. Let's go look for another. And it's four key personalities, which is also something I teach. And it's how we interact with life. And when we identify with what that is, we'll
Mhm.
know, are we somebody who's just going to be the victim and go, why me, and never ever move on from it? Are we going to take a little while to learn how to adjust? Or are we going to be these people that are just going to adjust out and seek out or sniff out different ways of doing it? And it's, I think it's a brilliant book. I recommend it to people.
Oh, yeah.
Richard Johnson, something Johnson, Spencer Johnson, MD. I think that's it, but highly
Mhm.
recommend the book. They
Yeah.
also did a great one for children, beautifully illustrated. But um,
Mhm.
that's the thing, is we have to learn to go with the flow and adapt, don't we?
We do that, absolutely. And you know, it's overseas too, living overseas. I
Mm-hmm.
think that prepared me to adapt
Mm.
because there's so many things you have to adapt to there.
Yes.
So that's what it you know, that's what it was like for me, was going to another country, like this, the vision impaired country. It's like it's
Yes.
making, you know, where you feel comfortable, you've learned the culture, you've learned that,
Mm.
you know, you're becoming more and more confident that you can carry your, you know, carry yourself properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
And you know, that receiving thing, you know, it's very, very important. You know, I know how hard it is, because you just don't want people to be treating you like a victim, or you've been very self-sufficient, and it's very hard now to receive. But the I once found myself saying to somebody, but you know, why are you spurning the gift of my help? And then I realized it echoed back at me. Why am I spurning the gift of other people's help? Because I'm so fiercely independent. And we've got to understand that it's coming from somebody, you know, somebody's love, somebody's caring. And we must not slap that hand down. So learning to receive
Yes.
is something that we really have to do, no matter what our challenge is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Hmm.
Because that's the village mentality where everybody helps one another.
Hmm.
So, writing, what kind of program do you do? Do you voice it?
Well, I I still have some vision, so I use one called Zoom Text, and it
Mm-hmm.
just changes the color background so that there's not a glare, so I
Mm-hmm.
can see it better. I have to enlarge the letters, and it works. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not yet. There are programs for when you can't see the words, but I'm not yet at that point. So I
Right.
can see. Yes.
So you can still see those words on that page manifesting, which is great.
Yes.
Do they say you'll be completely blind, or do they think that you'll plateau it like this?
They say that it rare now, they say, before they didn't say that, but they say now that people rarely go completely 100% blind, that you still maybe have a light perception,
Mm-hmm.
and that that there are that that you can retain a little bit, you know. So that's what the last doctor told me. And also for me, I had this wonderful thing happen to me. I was trying to go back with the Bureau of Blindness and Visual Services, and you have to document everything all over again when you've been away from them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, so I had to go to a doctor and say I have get him to write down that I have retinitis pigmentosa. And when this doctor, who was not a specialist, looked at my eye, he said, your lens is off center. You know, you have it's slit or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh my gosh, I have to fix that, because I, if it's something I can fix, I want to do it. I'm already losing my vision. And it took me, it was a year and a half, but we found a contact lens surgeon. It wasn't my lens that was off center. It was something that happened because I had cataract surgery at an early age. So it was a side effect from having that surgery that caused pigment to go over this eye, my left eye. And he, in a series, I had a couple different doctors, three actually, and they said you have to go very slowly because you can lose your vision completely. I was completely blind in this eye. I couldn't even see the big E in
Mm-hmm.
the on the chart. So and so of course I did all my seeing with my right eye. In 4 laser surgeries, he restored some of my central vision in this eye. It was amazing. It was so amazing. And it doesn't often happen with RP. So
Right.
people just keep losing. People don't gain. But because it was a side effect,
Yes.
and it wasn't the RP that was causing that vision loss. So I went from not being able to see the big E to be able to going to see the third line down, and in a span of 1 month.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it was, yeah. So now I see better than when I first started writing my book, because this vision in the central part of my eye has been restored.
Right.
So of course it's going to continue to lose. And
Yes.
it starts out with peripheral and then it goes to central vision. But because he gave me that, I think it's going to happen more slowly.
Yes. And gives you the now to do what you want to do and to enjoy, right? So why not?
Yes.
Do people with your condition ever look to eye transplants?
Sorry?
Eye transplants. Have you spoken to anybody about that? Literally having transports of different eyes, of new eyes.
Oh, yes, I have heard of that. Yes.
Because I had a teacher, one of my children's teacher, that she had 2 eyes done, and it changed her life completely because she was quite young and going blind. But is this something that you would consider, or could you be a candidate for it? Would you ever do it?
I would. If it restored some of my vision, if it gave me back more and empowered me more, yes.
Yeah.
I would. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I know that she was very successful, but you don't really hear about it too much, and it's I just don't know if it's just something that's not featured or not spoken about or just not done very much. But I think for people to have an open mind, right, that if you can do it, if you are a candidate for it, to have an open mind to its possibility, because why not, right?
Right, that's right. Yes, I whatever is open to science, I think is a positive thing.
Right.
So.
Do you wear glasses?
I had a pair of glasses with a special lens connected outside it, and I wore that for a while. And sometimes they help me at night, but I rarely do that because it makes so little difference. So I rarely. And sometimes when I'm wearing it and I walk into the wall or something, people are like, what is she doing?
Yeah.
She's got glasses.
Is your policy not to go out at night if you can help it?
No, I still go out.
You do?
Yeah. Yeah, I just use I rely more on my cane. And
right.
Yeah. And especially right now, it's with the darkness coming at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
So yeah, this is the downtime where you have less light, but I still go, and I just say, well, I'm not going to let this stop me, because you have to live your life.
Exactly. I was actually thinking last night, kind of, after the other show I did on blindness and your show coming up, I was lying in bed and I suddenly thought, well, has anybody come up with like a GPS for the cane yet? Something that speaks to you, to your left, to your right, ahead, or anything like that. Is there anything like that?
Yes, there is actually. There is. I talked to my well, he's a senior retinal specialist, and he said that they do make them nowadays. They have so many different kinds of canes, and they're becoming, like, a lot of people are designing new ones. So they're becoming very oh my gosh, so many different things that help you with your cane. Smart canes, yeah. I think you're talking about, yes. And
I think that's pretty brilliant, because if you've got something, you can just put it in your ear and it's saying what's ahead of you, avoiding curb ahead. You could even just plug in where you're going and have it guide you, right?
Yes.
Which would be a great asset.
That's what they have with this AIRA, AIRA. It's an app that you can use in the airports. You can use in large areas, and it's pretty amazing. That's what I used in the supermarket when I was trying it out.
Right. So that's on your phone, but if it was actually in the cane as well, where the cane can pick out within a radius of what's around it, would I think be really incredibly beneficial. Pre-warning. Right, don't wait until you're tripping over it.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, and and the dog too. That guy
yes,
dog.
Yes.
pretty amazing.
Do you have a dog? Eye-seeing dog?
Not yet, but that's where I'm headed. Yes. You
Yeah.
have to have good cane skills. And once and so I'll probably brush up on my cane skills, and I will get a dog. Yeah.
You know, the added thing to that is the wonderful companionship, you know, and kind of somebody who's got your back. You know, I think it's wonderful. You know, I did a show on companion dogs, you know, for veterans for post-traumatic stress, and how it
Right.
gave them back their life, you know, and it's so, you know, obviously you're a very strong woman, but for some people who are a little more vulnerable to stress, you know, being blind, navigating out there can be a challenge. So having that dog that, you know, is out there
Yeah.
being your protector, but also going home and understanding, you know, that need and that love, I think is very important. So it's, there is no one size that fits all, is there? You know, you have to
Yeah.
really explore yourself,
Right.
your parameters, what you can and cannot do. So,
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, as I've known a lot of blind people in my life, some that were born that way, some that became that way. And it was always very interesting to see life from their perspective, because the perception of life was far more in tuned in many ways than us where we're seeing, because we believe everything we see. And, you know, and I think when you don't see and you have to see with the inner eye, you are going to deduce the knowledge in a different way. So in some ways, it can be a gift because it gives you a different form of sight.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think you're right. It can be a gift, and you look past a lot of surface level things.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Look deeper. Right. Wonderful connection to it. So, my dear, will you tell people how they can find your books and where you're selling them, and also how people can get hold of you for any guest speaking or, you know, just want to reach out to you?
They can go to my website is amybovaird.com.
Can you
That's
spell that for people, please?
yes, it's A at alpha, M, Y, B as in boy, O, V as in Victor, A, I, R, D.com, amybovaird.com. And so my books are available there. They're also available at amazon.com and audible.com. All three books, they're available regular print, large print, audio, and on request in Braille. I have
Excellent.
I have someone who transcribes them for me, so they're also available there.
You know, that's what a wonderful gift to someone who is facing that early challenge, you know,
Yes.
but also a gift to people who know somebody who's blind or just who's generally interested in it, because we have to understand redirect your challenge in, you know, now seeing without sight. If the family have read these things as well, you know, the
Yes.
disability one and even, you know, the confessions one, it gives them more empowerment of how to treat somebody that's going through this, and also what their role is in it, because so often people stay away or go and do too much because they just simply don't understand, or, you know, or treat somebody as a victim rather than this is a life challenge that they're adapting to. So I think if they can really hear the story from somebody who's living it, who's ahead of the game, it helps them understand their role in someone's life that is blind or even, you know, partially blind.
Yeah, that's true. So many vision impaired people have read this and told me the same thing about their families better understanding as the first book, as well as they came to terms with their cane, and how they're just all of the thought process as you try to adjust. That has been really well accepted by the vision impaired people. Oh, I've been there. I've done that. I've
Yes.
had the same thing. And then the second one, as you said, is a really big educational tool. And the third one, Seeking Solace, is really about loss itself, is any kind of loss, going through change and looking for the positive in any kind of loss,
Yeah.
which hope that people can relate to, because a lot of people go through divorce, a lot of people have lost a close family member. So I think that optimism is one of the aspects that is always present in my book. That no matter what you're going through, there's always at some point a brighter side.
Yes.
That
The
you can
sun will
find.
come out tomorrow, right?
It is true, even though you go really to the depths. Yeah.
Yes.
I have, had a lot of really terrible things happen, but yeah, I believe that it
And
does
then
have
they will
its
say
strength.
there's always something for a reason. And, at the time
Yeah,
you go through, oh, why me, or what the hell could this reason be?
yeah,
And,
yeah,
sometimes it's just to take you to, because some people don't survive the challenge. Some people give up, and they say many, many people when they're diagnosed with cancer die from the diagnosis, not the cancer.
really, yeah,
And because, oh, I'm going to die, I'm giving up, instead of, okay, I've got cancer as a challenge, what am I going to do to beat it? And so we go down to attitude a great deal. And if you have that positive attitude and you choose to be optimistic, learn from it and just look at it as an adventure, of exploring a different side, a different journey, and not as something that's out to get you, or that, you did something bad in your life and it's now here to punish you. No, it's your life challenge to embrace who you are, what you're here to do, and just to find out actually how awesome you really are.
hmm yeah, yeah. And I mean, I'm not to just say that it's really, you just turn your head and go through it. It's you are down at certain parts,
Yes. And let
and
yourself be. Give yourself a hug. Embrace, let others hug and support you at that time, right?
yes,
How you can't stay up all the time. That's false.
yes,
You
that's
know,
right. And
that vulnerability is that
yeah,
nurturing time that you have to give yourself.
that's right. And my books are very vulnerable. They show all of my flaws.
Mm-hmm.
They show where I have not been up, but they show also resilience.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
so I
we've all
think
got that in us if we choose to seek it, right? We've got it in us. That's what the life's journey is all about. The ups and downs, the roller coasters, the 2x4s, all of that. It's all here to test your strength, your courage, for you to step into that conscious awakening, to actually understand what your instrument is and how it belongs to the orchestra of life. And if you're
yeah,
not willing to walk it, or you get stuck in victim mode or blame mode or shame mode, you're just not going to be able to move forward. So a positive attitude, resilience, asking for help, accepting help, and even pushing your challenges of how much more you can do is really the key factors that you need, isn't it?
that's correct. And you mentioned the 2x4s. I have had my share of 2x4s.
You definitely have.
Yes,
But you keep getting back up, right?
physical ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
the brains are splattered, but you just pick them back up and put them back in and go, okay, next. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the getting back up. It's the getting back up, and yeah, you might be a bit wobblier, but it's the getting back up that counts, not staying down. And
That's,
that's really what it's about. So,
people can also find me on Facebook. I have an author page, Amy Bovaird author. They can find me there, and um, my website. Yeah. And yeah, they can find those three places. I have Amy Bovaird, and then my personal page and my Amy Bovaird author page.
right. And yeah, and of course your website, Amy Bovaird, and of course the Mobility Matters Amazon, mobilitymattersaudio.com, Kane Confessions Amazon, Kane Confessions Audio, Seeking Solace Amazon, Seeking Solace Audio,
Yeah, that's right.
audible.com.
That's right.
So
Yes.
they're all
Yeah.
there here on the page, but for those who are just listening, and these books are something wonderful to read. That they clearly, are going to take you through the emotional journey as well, which is okay, because we're always
Yeah.
going to find something of ourselves in somebody else's journey, and then
Yes.
we come out with a better understanding, not of your disability, but of your ability to overcome your challenge. And
That's correct.
it's an invitation for us to go, well, if she can do it, why can't I do it in my own life with my own challenges, right?
That's right.
Which
Mm-hmm.
is really important. Inspiration begets invitation. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your story with us here, Amy.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed it. It was just wonderful.
And wonderful to see such resilience, such determination, and just, embracing that redirection. As you said, you've had a lot of 2x4s, rugs pulled underneath you, but you kept getting back up no matter what was thrown at you. So I hope that it's smooth sailing for you from now on, that you've had your share, and that you can just keep on writing and being inspirational for other people and enjoy your life, at this level without it going any darker for you. So thank you so much for being here today and sharing with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share my message. So,
It's a very inspirational one. And folks, somebody out there that's got some form of challenge. Learning about what the challenges are is respectful. It teaches you how to treat other people and not to assume, because assumption is very dangerous. So go and get wised up and remember, when you're stepping up and asking someone for help in a way that doesn't make them feel small, but just in helping them to be large of who they really are. So until next time, folks, it's bye for now. For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show. For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show.